Hey, everybody, welcome to Podcast Answers, the show where I help people start and grow their podcast, answering all sorts of podcasting questions along the way. And we are doing it again. We are going to be talking tonight about the Rodecaster Video. It is a 100% new device, and so I'm answering all sorts of questions about that. To be fair, to be honest, I do not have one of these in my hand. I am using Ecamm to do my video now, but I will be talking about what is the Rodecaster Video. Should you get one for your video productions and podcasting and things like that? So stick with me. We are going to be talking all about it. We're going to be talking all about how to do it, how to use it, what it is not, and should you get one. So Rode released this device just last week. They announced it last week, and it's available for purchase right now at B&H only. But what is it? It's a video switcher, a hardware video switcher, and kind of a Rodecaster combined. And so what do I mean by that? A hardware video switcher, if you're not, I'm going to break it down super simple because you may or may not even know what a hardware video switcher is. And so I want to touch on what a hardware video switcher is first, and then we will talk a little bit about what the Rodecaster is. So hardware video switchers are literally that. They're hardware that you can plug your cameras into. That may be a HDMI in, that may be a SDI in. It could be a lot of different things, but it's a separate video hardware that's specifically designed for video switching. And what it allows you to do is take all of your inputs and switch cameras. It's what you would do if you were live TV broadcasting. It's what you would do if you were creating video podcasts. That's what it is. So there's that. There's the such thing as a video hardware switcher, and then there's a software video switcher, and that's what I'm using tonight in Ecamm. So in Ecamm, I have several different scenes set up. I could bring my guests on if I had guests. I could, have separate scenes and things like that. Now that's all done in software, and so my computer is not a dedicated video device, and so I have to have dongles and adapters and things to get my video into the hardware or into the computer, and so there's different advantages on both. So if you have a dedicated video hardware, that's what it's for. It's easy because that's all it does. Whereas with a computer, you could have something going wrong. You could have a different app taking up lots of memory. You could have lots of different things, and so what Rode released is so that they've had for about a year now, they've had another device called the Streamer X. And essentially what that is it allows you to take a camera in and use it as a webcam, and you can mute and you can do all sorts of stuff like that. It's a very simple capture card. And so what they've done is this year they've released the Rodecaster Video, and it is essentially a Rodecaster Streamer X on steroids plus kind of a Rodecaster. Because so what it has, so this is just explaining the hardware here. It has 6 video inputs, and with those 6 video inputs, what it allows you to do is I brought one up on screen here. So the 6 video inputs, so this is the hardware piece right here, but the 6 video inputs, what it allows you to do is it allows you to take 6 different cameras in. And so that's 4 HDMI inputs. So if you have 4 different HDMI cameras, you can bring those in. And then it also has 2 USB-C inputs for UBC video. And so what that allows you to do is bring some, like your webcam, or actually really just webcams in, really. So you could have 2 webcams in and 4 HDMI inputs. And it allows a video in frame rate of 1920 by 1080, so no 4K. I've seen lots of people complain about the 4K, not having 4K, things like that. Really, I don't think it's a big deal that it's 1080p only, but so video in frame rate is going to be 1080p So it's 1920 by 1080, and then the frame rate is 23.97, 24, 25, 29.7, 30, 50, 59.94, and 60. And then it can do a video out frame rate of 1920 by 1080 at 24 frames per second, 25 frames per second, 30 frames per second, 50 frames per second, and 60 frames per second. And then it also has 2 HDMI outs. So if you wanted to go to a TV, you could do that. If you wanted to go to something like a video capture card somewhere else, you could do that. You can have one of your video outputs as the multi-cam or the multi-view. Essentially, that would be program, preview, and then all of your separate inputs, so you can kind of see. Again, this is really meant for like doing video switching live, so more of like an event than something pre-programmed. Now, I say that, but something in Ecamm allows you. I mean, Ecamm has essentially what they call like a it's a camera. It's called a camera switcher. So if you're looking here at this, you see all of the different camera inputs here, and you could switch between them and essentially do like a multicam input if you really wanted to, but it's not necessarily designed to be set up like that for like live production. But again, you can. Lots of people use it for live production. You can set up Ecamm pretty much the way you want to, but this video is not about Ecamm, right? This podcast episode is about the Rodecaster video and what it is. So again, I said it had 2 HDMI out, and then it also has USB out too. So that can show up as a webcam. So again, if you wanted to bring that into something else like Ecamm or like Zoom or whatever, you could bring your production out of the Rodecaster video into something else on your computer to actually send it out to the world, whether it be straight streaming, YouTube, or whatever. But it does allow you to do, so it has a couple different things. You can record locally on the device with a thumb drive or something standalone like that. So this would be something where you go to your hard drive, you're recording it, you have a separate hard drive for it. Unlike the Rodecaster Pro, the Rodecaster 2 Pro or the Rodecaster Duo, that output goes out onto an SD card. Now, this Rodecaster video does have an SD card slot on it, but that's not for your produced video files, because video can get fairly large, and so you don't want to go out necessarily onto an SD card for that. But you can go to a thumb drive, something that you can get a bigger, like terabyte, 2 terabyte storage, and so you can do that. You can also go live directly to like an RTMP ingest. So YouTube, Facebook, Rumble, Twitch, any of those things that have an RTMP input on them where you can stream to them, you can stream right off of this Rodecaster video. You can stream right to that. So you can stream and record at the same time. The SD card that's on it, I did mention it does have an SD card like the Rodecaster Pro and the Rodecaster Duo. The SD card on it, though, is for assets only. And by that, I mean overlays and backgrounds and things like that. So it also has, this is where I was saying it kind of is like a Rodecaster Duo or Rodecaster Pro, because it has 2 XLRs and those are I don't want to even say XLRs, they're the Neutrix combo jacks. So you could do 2 XLR cables, you could do 2 1/4-inch inputs, you could do XLR and a 1/4-inch input, because they're combo jacks. You can use either ones. They have the same Revolution preamps that the Rodecaster Pro does, and that's really cool because the Revolution preamps are amazing, guys. You can drive a SM7B off of it without the cloud lifter and things like that. So it's amazing because you can use those inputs pretty easily and pretty universally. It has 2 headphone jacks on it. So again, if you're used to the Rodecaster Pro or the Rodecaster Duo, actually, let's just go with the Duo because it's more like a Duo than a Pro. It has 2 headphone jacks on it. So again, if you are doing a podcast, a video podcast, you can plug right into that and listen to your headphones. You can have your other co-host having headphones on and hear it. Then it also has two monitor outs, or a monitor out, so a stereo monitor out. So if you wanted to do something along the lines of monitoring your video, you had audio playing from it, you could have studio monitors there. Now, the way that you control this thing is there's buttons on it. So if you're used to the ATEM line of things like ATEM Mini, Extreme, ISO, whatever, those things, they look similar. They're flat, it's a little panel, and it has the buttons on it. It has 2 rows of buttons. And so what the buttons are handy for is the very bottom row of buttons is just to switch between your camera inputs. And so if you just want to do a straight shot, between your cameras, you just want to switch between cameras, you can push those bottom buttons and it does a full frame, full video camera switch. So it's just the whole thing. It's just going to switch it straight up, and it's going to switch between those sources. It's going to switch between sources. Now the second row, the row that's on top, is for scenes. And you can set up scenes, and this is where this device becomes really cool, because if you're familiar with the ATEM line, you really can't do a whole lot with it. Really, it's just a big video switcher, but you can't do all of the fancy things. It's more along the lines of like the ATEM line. Think of it more of I don't want to say professional, because I don't want to set this apart between professional and non-professional, because they're both professional devices, but the ATEM is more for like where you're just going to do switching between scenes. You're not going to do any fancy graphics on it and things like that. The Rodecaster Video is 100% different, because you can build scenes on it. You can kind of they have pre-built templates in there, so you can say, okay, camera A is big, camera B is littler, and then it has this background. Or you can build your own scenes. You can just add an input and put it there and place your cameras wherever you want them. You can load graphics off the back or off the SD card, so that you can have your branded background on it, like similar like what I'm doing in Ecamm. If you're watching the video right now, I have a background and I have a lower third bug that's going on that says podcast answers. It's similar to that, whereas you can bring that in the Rodecaster Video. So you can't do that necessarily in the ATEM line of video switchers, but you can in this. And so it's really easy. So if you've ever used anything like a Rodecaster Pro or anything else by Rode, you've more than likely used Rode Central. Rode Central is the app that they use to control all of their devices. So if you have the wireless Pro mics, you can set all the settings, you can get the recordings off of it, things like that. Your Rodecaster Pro allows you to configure it, get your recordings off of it, things like that. This is the same thing. So you plug it in and you turn the Rodecaster Central app on, and it allows you to really configure this. And so to configure it, you go in there, you can build your scenes, you can do a lot of things. Now you can I had mentioned multi-view earlier, and you can set one of your outputs to be multi-view, but you don't necessarily have to, because if you have the Rode Central app open, you can see the multi-view right there. And so it's really cool because it allows you to kind of see your multi-view on your computer. Again, you don't have to have a computer to run this thing. If you're taking this in the field and you have a monitor, you can just hook the monitor up, see the multi-view. It's great for doing traveling shows and things like that. But you can, if you don't have a separate monitor, you can hook it right up to your computer, open up Rode Central, and you see the multi-view. You can adjust. Now, again, the downside of this is I say it's like a Rodecaster Duo, but it does not have the sliders and the faders on it like that does. So if you're a person who adjusts the volume a lot during the show, it's going to be a little bit harder for you to do this on the Rodecaster Video, because it does not have any physical sliders on it. But it does have it. You can, through the menus, you can adjust the volume. But again, you're probably not going to be doing a lot of that during your broadcast. You're going to do your pre-show check, make sure your levels are good, and then you're probably going to forget it. But if you have the Rode Central app and you open the Rode Central app up, you will see Rode central and the multi-view, and you can adjust the sliders right on there. Now, one thing I didn't mention yet is, so I mentioned it has 2 XLR inputs, but it also allows you to hook 2 wireless devices up. So this is the wireless, just like the Rodecaster Pro, the Rodecaster Duo. If you have those, you can hook up the Wireless Me, the Wireless Go, the Wireless Pro, all of the newer generations of the Rode wireless mics, the Interview Pro, those you can all hook up to this device wirelessly. So really you could have 4 audio inputs, because you could have 2 coming in from the combo jacks, so XLR, or from 1/4-inch jack. But then you could also have 2 wireless mics in on it too. So that's great, because if you wanted to do something like a interview show and you had your host and your guest sitting at a table far away, they can use the wireless mics and not have to be hooked directly into the video system. It's nice. Now, one other thing that is really kind of cool about this, that I was a little bit like, okay, this is weird. I mean, I don't quite get it when they were announcing it, but I now the more that I think about it, the more I like it. So you can add a Rodecaster Pro or Rodecaster Duo and add extra inputs. So I mentioned that it has the 2 USB in. It allows you to do essentially the same thing as a Rodecaster. You know how the Rodecaster Pro has the USB 1 and USB 2. This device essentially has the same thing on it. However, if you take one of your Rodecaster Pro or Rodecaster Duo USB outputs, you can hook that into this video device. So then essentially you have four XLR jacks on your, if you have a Rodecaster Pro, you have those 4 inputs, and then you have 2 inputs in the video. So you could actually do 6 XLR inputs if you wanted to. You would mix your audio from the 4 on the Rodecaster Pro, bring that in as 1 channel into your video, and then you have 2 other channels of audio that you can bring in from the Rodecaster video. So really, it's kind of an amazing device. Now, I say that, but there are caveats. There definitely are times that you would want to use this device and times that you would not want to use this device. And here's where I'm going with this, right? Okay. Who is this for? It's for creators on the go. It makes it really easy. If you have your camera and some maybe 1 or 2 cameras, you can plug it in. If you have 2 USB cameras, you could plug it in. And it would be really easy to kind of just go, let's say you were going to a show floor, you were going to maybe work from your hotel room, something like that. It works great like this. It takes out the separate computer, having to have a separate computer, having to have, capture cards, things like that. Because if you have the capture cards, then you end up having to lug around the capture cards and other things to get that to work, and hope, especially if you're going mobile with this. So let's say you're using Ecamm, and again, I love Ecamm, and I'm all for Ecamm, and I wouldn't trade it for anything. But if I'm on the go and I'm going to be recording, let's say mobily or in a hotel room, I now have to take my MacBook. I have to take some sort of a capture card. And if I have more than 1 camera, so let's say I'm doing 2 or 3 cameras that aren't necessarily webcams, I now have to have 2 or 3 capture cards. But the thing to note is your Thunderbolt lanes can only handle so many of those input capture cards. And so a lot of times creators end up having to get some sort of a dock that can handle all of that. So now if you're on the go, you have to take that dock with you and the capture cards, and you're going to hope it works. And whereas if you take the Rodecaster video, you now have the ability to just take your cameras and your Rodecaster video, and you're good to go. It's also good for people that want to, right now, aren't using anything else. Like they're not using Ecamm, they're not using OBS, they're not using anything like that to do a better stream. Maybe they're using the ATEM because they have a couple capture cards. So this would be good for people using an ATEM and getting the HDMI in. They're already using it. This is going to be better because it's going to allow you to build scenes. It's going to allow you to go and have all of this with you, but be able to build these scenes that look cool because they have graphics in them. They have animated overlays. They have, super source, things like that. This is also for people who want to get the video production off of their computer. Video production is really taxing on your computer, guys. Like, I don't know if you know that, but it takes a lot of processing power to do video on your computer. It's okay if you're doing one camera, but let's say you start to move in one camera and a guest through Zoom, or two cameras and a guest through Zoom, or three cameras, and you start adding these things and your computer starts to bog down. Your computer, you need a higher power computer because it's going to take more to process this. So if you want to get this video off of the video production off of your computer, you can easily do that with the Rodecaster video. It separates that out. It separates out the need to have doing all of the video on your computer. Who is this not for? Who is the Rodecaster video not for? People using software switchers like Ecamm. So I'm using my software switcher. The reason I say that is because the Rodecaster video is not going to produce discrete video inputs for all of your cameras. Meaning, Ecamm is only going to see one camera. And that one camera is going to be the output from your Rodecaster video. So you can have your 4 video inputs coming into your Rodecaster video, and you'll do all of your switching on the Rodecaster video. But then Ecamm is only going to see that one output. And that's okay if that's how you want to do it. I mean, if you really don't want to have 4 separate capture cards, but you want to have the ease of doing graphic overlays and bringing in comments and the stuff that Ecamm is really good at, then you can do that. You could use the Rodecaster video for it. But it's not, if you're doing all of your switching in there, if you're hoping to build scenes in Ecamm that have a guest or 2 cameras or things like that, you won't be able to do that. You'll have to build those scenes in the Rodecaster video and then just switch to them in the Rodecaster video and not use them and bring them in via Ecamm. This is also not for people using 3 or more webcams. In some of my productions, have used webcams as my inputs instead of DSLRs or mirrorless cameras or whatever. And in some cases, I have 3 cameras. I have a guest, I have a host, and a co-host, and I have a host. You can't do that with a Rodecaster video. If you have 3 webcams, it's not going to work. They have 2 webcam inputs. This is also not for people wanting to bring in NDI video sources. So by that, I mean, if you're bringing in something for let's say ProPresenter or NDI capture app on your computer. Currently, Ecamm works great. If I have ProPresenter on my computer or ProPresenter on another computer on the network, I can easily bring that video in, that overlays in, that whatever that's coming out of ProPresenter, I can bring that into my Ecamm. But with the Rodecaster video, that doesn't work. You cannot bring your extra inputs in like that. You can't. It doesn't work. So, is it for you? It could be. Do you fit under one of those scenarios? Creators on the go, wanting to bring your higher level video, getting your production off of your computer, upping your game from the ATEM. If you're already using the ATEM, then it's for you. If you're using software switchers like Ecamm, it's probably not for you. People using 3 or more webcams, it's not for you. People wanting to bring in NDI sources in, it's not for you. So there you have to decide, is the Rodecaster video for you? It could be. Now, one thing to note is the Rodecaster Video currently costs $1,199 US. And I know some people are balking at the price of that because the ATEM is a lot cheaper. But the Rodecaster Video does a whole lot more. And when you start to step up your game and level up and become more professional, the hardware costs more. And that's opposed to the. Now, the good thing about that is it's a one-time cost. You pay for it. That's all. Ecamm, that's $40 a month if you're getting the Pro. That's $400 a year. And it is reoccurring. But you also get what you pay for. You can do a lot more with Ecamm that you can't do with this Rodecaster. So there's that toss-up. Is it for you? It might be. Let me know what you think. Let me know, is the Rodecaster Video something that you're going to get? Is it something that you're going to add to your production? Or is it something that you're going to skip and you're going to say, nah, this isn't for me. This isn't for me. Let me know. I would love to know. So in the comments of this video, in the comments for this episode, go over to podcastanswers.com/contact and let me know. Are you going to use this? Are you going to use this video, the Rodecaster Video? Are you going to pass on it? Guys, I hope to see you soon. And let me know, again, like I said, let me know if you're going to use this. I would love to hear about it.